Hello there and welcome back. We move into game 2 of the Warboar regionals. I get drawn versus Matt with his mighty Uthuk. My list is exactly the same. You can go check out the previous video for a breakdown. Matt has a 3x2 of Berserkers with a War Sprinter and an Aggressive Shrieker to go super fast and always count as having charged. Some Flesh Rippers with Dead Sprint to make them super fast. Kethra with Shield of Margath and Kingsbone Armor, which makes it armor 4, and if I attack her in melee, which is highly unlikely, I will get 4 damage bounced back onto me. 2 units of Spine Threshers, one with Scuttling Horror to make them really fast and annoying, and one with Devouring Maws to make them regen if I remember correctly. So this is our deployment. We're playing Meeting Engagement and the Confluence of Magic, so that's where he's placed my objective tokens to pick up to activate the runes. You can see at the top where I've placed his. I think the last one is on my far left, his far right. He actually chose, he had the bid, and this is the first time it really came up in this tournament, and chose to be first player. The reason for this meant that he had pick of both bits of terrain and put them up in his deployment zone, so they were largely irrelevant for me. So I put my overgrowth tokens on there, but it meant that I didn't have my lovely piece of terrain to shift my archers around, which was quite annoying. So, into the first turn, and this is our original casting of the runes. 3 greens for me, which is good. 2 red for him, which is good for his berserkers rushing forward. And there they go. Now I thought he would probably be a bit more aggressive with them, but that's as far as he went. He picked up an objective token on the way, and I didn't take a picture of it now, but he uses it to reflip one of my greens to get a double red. Pushing up with his Flesh Rippers. So I thought he was going to push up a lot more aggressively, and had dialed in a charge, very speculative with my cavalry. Failed, but again, for the second time or third time so far, the metered march comes to my rescue so that they don't have to go into the middle of his army. A few shots go awry, not a lot happens, and we go into turn 2. So as you can see, he's managed to flip it so that he has 4 reds and I have 2 greens. With those 4 reds, he gets an early move off into my cavalry with his berserkers, taking me completely off guard, and only kills 1 of them. But this is where those 4 red runes and the aggressive shrieker really made a difference. My archers, small unit of archers, open fire on his Flesh Rippers and drop 1 of them. I mean, the max they can do is, on a perfect roll, is to kill 2 in a turn, so it's not ideal. So I skipped out a couple of dice rolls here, but so what's happened is the Flesh Rippers actually, between their dead sprint and their actual move, charged in and obliterated most of my cavalry. And my archers have sort of scooted around them. I think I took a pot shot, which has dropped 1 of them to put a wound on 1 of them, and tried to get around them. Either that, or I tried to get a shot off at Kethra, but with her armor 4 didn't do much. He then moves her up and triggers her ability, so explodes off, I think, 3 damage. 1 does damage, bouncing off from the Flesh Rippers into my units, again popping a load, taking out a few archers, etc. So here we go. This is the state of play at the end of the turn. I've moved up my Scion in there, basically just to try and maybe get a wound or so off if I get a lucky hit in next turn, or just to immobilize mostly the Berserkers to try and hold that flank up. You'll see on my left I have another Scion trying to keep some Spine Threshers busy, and Aliana is dancing and shifting around, trying to avoid that scuttling horror on my far left unit of Spine Threshers and keeping them away from the rest of my army. So, turn 3. Yep. His Flesh Rippers just destroy the last of my cavalry. If you're wondering why I dialed in the charge, it's because the way he'd removed the trays, I was no longer in combat and he decided not to follow up. So I dialed in the charge just in case he decided to do something else with Flesh Rippers, and he could go in, because he hasn't used his moment of inspiration yet, and try and take out as many berserkers with him as he could, but obviously that wasn't meant to be. My archers retaliate and try and take out some of his rippers, but I think I only get one hit, which is fairly inconvenient, really. Kethra does some shuffling around to try and get into my army. My archers respond by just running away and windrunning away and reforming to try and get some shots off at her. And I didn't take a picture earlier, but his regenning, so the one with the black and red unit of Spine Threshers, has gone into the other Scion, killed it, but have picked up and immobilized. So as you can see, his berserkers and threshers there are both immobilized. Aliana over here has danced through the 2 units of threshers, hoping to get away to safety, and we'll see how she pulls that one off. I think somewhere here as well, I think for my big unit when it danced through, they picked up a rune, and I think I managed to flip and turn off one of his double red runes and turn it back to a green in the proceedings. If you have a look up there, yep, we're back to 3 greens and 2 red going into turn 4. This means that, so Kethra sort of again turns around a bit. We're shuffling around. My unit of archers trying to get position to be able to shoot at the berserkers before the end of the game and get closer to that overgrown rocky outcrop up here to maximise my chance of being able to escape from his horrible hurty hitty demon things. Between Scuttling Horror and various movement, Aliana is about to be caught, or has been caught, by the Spine Threshers. And here the Flesh Rippers are closing in on my small unit of archers. These Uthuk are really, really fast. So, this is what goes on. Now, I'd done the maths and I realised I didn't want to attack with Aliana just yet because it would be a waste of her abilities, so I had rallied her, because I think she was stunned or panicked, and reformed so that his Gribblies didn't get the extra dice for hitting her in the side or the rear. And in his attack, when he attacks her, he blanks out, double blank, so she survives. Absolutely no right to not take any damage there, but I'll take it. The Flesh Rippers go into the small unit of archers and, funnily enough, absolutely destroy them. Lack of knowledge and experience here. I dialed in an early move with the archers. The idea was, in case he'd dialed in a charge, a late charge, I would charge in and it would stop him attacking me, but I can't remember exactly, but either he saw it coming and dialed in the attack, or he got the charge in before I could. Either way, there's one lone archer stood there. You can see at the top right, at this point, this photo was taken just after my big unit went. We shot to the berserkers and got the perfect roll for us at this point. Double hit, double surge, which meant 6 damage. The double surge gave me a 1 shift. The wind ring gives me another 3 shift. I land and a reform, and then I land within range of the overgrown terrain to get yet another shift. I have to say, I'm really liking the amount of mobility that this unit has. So there we go, I'm just moving away from them. And I do believe that as part of my simultaneous orders, I was also able to flip that last double red rune back to a blank, which turns off some of his, well, a large chunk of his mobility with the berserkers. You can see on this side here, Aliana's facing down the big, horrible monsters. These two have reformed round. They know they're not needed on the right side of the battlefield. They're coming in to finish off my commander. Or an incredibly blurry picture that is of no use to no one, but into the next turn. So finally, my commander attacks, and I think she was on lethal 9, 10, something like that, and with her mortal wound, so she just drops one of the spine threshers and does a couple of wounds to the other one, which is good fun. The flesh rippers, I mean, shock, horror, obliterate that last archer. The berserkers have taken some more shooting as I really try and hide behind that rock, so down to 3 trays of them. Quite happy with that. But there they go, they move up fast enough that there's really nowhere I can go at this point, and it's probably better for me to just take the full frontal charge rather than try and get away and give him the flank charge. Although the way his movement dial works, I think there was no way for me to get out of this at this point. So onwards. I think last round I didn't take a picture, but his threshers fluffed again in retaliation against Aliana. So you can see here, these guys have just moved in. This is where the main action is at. The rest of my army is gone. He attacks with his berserkers. I get reasonably lucky, only lose a few elves. He has Scuttling Horrid away with this guy. I attack the guys to the rear, which, because they're in my rear, I don't have precise anymore, but I still managed to pick off 3 wounds. I think it's not a great roll, as you can see. An actually token, I think a double hit, and my automatic mortal, but just nowhere near enough. They hit her back and just absolutely cream her into nothingness. The top here, I dialed in a melee attack with my archers, which was all fine and dandy, just trying to get these berserkers down to below 2 trays. But of course, the Kethra's army ability means that I take 2 wounds back. Into the last turn. At this point, we know that there's only one thing that really matters, and it's this combat up here. He attacks, he takes off the last couple of archers there, isn't able to kill a scion, which is good for me, which keeps me above 4 trays. His other threshers move up, and that's it. That's where the game ends. So I was reasonably happy with the way I'd clawed back a few points. I thought, you know, kill the thresher here, half the berserkers, did a decent job on the rippers. But it turns out I scored 49 victory points and Matt got 163. Not much of my army was left. I'd lost 2 down to 4 trays of my archers, which led to a 9-2 win for him. Absolutely great game, but I was just completely taken aback by the Uthuk speed. Hey ho, you live you learn, and hopefully I'll be able to do something about it and put up a bit more of a fight next time we play. So when we go to the last round, I'm on 1 win, 1 loss, and we'll see what happens. And bye bye.